Poor boy saves CEO woman from burning Mustang. At hospital, he discovers she's her real mother. The city's heartbeat pulsed through the cobblestone alleys of the old district, a symphony of forgotten whispers and fading grandeur. Among them, the Community Arts Center, the Phoenix Canvas, stood as a testament to resilience, its worn brick facade radiating warmth under the late afternoon sun. Inside, the quiet hum of creativity filled the air, a world apart from the gleaming, corporate towers downtown. Liam O'Connell, a lanky 16-year-old with hands smudged with charcoal and eyes that held the quiet intensity of an old soul, meticulously arranged his latest sketches on a drying rack. Each drawing, a stark, emotional portrait of the city's unsung heroes, the street musicians, the elderly newspaper vendor, the bakery owner below their cramped apartment. "Another masterpiece, eh, lad?" grunted Grandpa Seamus, his voice a gravelly comfort, as he hobbled out of the center's small office, wiping paint from his weathered hands. Seamus, a retired dock worker with a lifetime of stories etched onto his face, ran the Phoenix Canvas on a shoestring budget, pouring every ounce of his dwindling pension into ensuring Liam and other neighborhood kids had a place to dream. Liam looked up, his dark curls falling into his eyes. "Just trying to capture the truth, Grandpa. This city's got a million stories if you only stop to look." Liam had an uncanny ability to see the soul in the ordinary, a trait Seamus both admired and worried about. Life in their small, cluttered apartment above O'Malley's bakery was a constant juggle. Every spare penny stretched to cover rising rent and Seamus's own aching joints. But he'd poured his heart and soul into raising Liam, ensuring the boy never felt the weight of their humble existence. "Chloe Sterling said my art belongs in a dumpster," Liam confessed later that evening, his voice uncharacteristically soft as they sat on their fire escape, the distant wail of sirens a familiar lullaby. Grandpa Seamus scowled. "Chloe Sterling from that fancy private school, don't you mind her, boy. Her daddy thinks money makes the man, but your spirit, your heart, that's where true worth lies. Your mother, bless her soul, always said that." Liam nodded, then picked up a small, weathered wooden bird charm, its paint chipped from years of carrying. "This little robin, it was hers," he murmured, turning it in his palm. "It's always been my lucky charm." Grandpa Seamus's gaze lingered on the charm, a fleeting shadow of a distant sorrow crossing his face. "Aye, lad. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is." As the day faded, neither could have imagined that the morrow would bring a twist of fate that would shatter their quiet world. The next afternoon, Liam was sketching pigeons in the park near the high-rises when a piercing shriek of tires rent the air. A sleek, customized black Mustang, its engine roaring like a caged beast, veered wildly off the main avenue that bordered the towering Vance Global headquarters. Ms. Eleanor Vance, fresh from a high-stakes board meeting, wrestled with the steering wheel as the car swerved sharply, slamming into a thick oak at the edge of the meticulously manicured corporate lawn. Metal shrieked, glass shattered, and a terrifying hiss of steam was quickly followed by an ominous orange glow, then hungry flames licking at the crumpled hood. "Grandpa!" Liam yelled, but his feet were already pounding towards the wreckage. Inside, the twisted metal. A woman in a crisp power suit slumped unconscious against her seatbelt, blood trickling from a cut on her temple. The fire was spreading, consuming the engine compartment with terrifying speed. Ma'am, wake up!" Liam pounded on the driver's side window, but it was unyielding. The door was jammed, severely warped against the frame. Panic might have paralyzed him, but Liam's mind worked with startling, almost adult clarity. He spotted a discarded construction rebar near the tree and seized it with both hands. The passenger window exploded inward as he struck it, raining safety glass everywhere. Without hesitation, Liam half climbed through the opening. "Ma'am, you have to wake up." He shook the woman's shoulder hard. Eleanor Vance's eyes fluttered open, dazed and disoriented. "The car's on fire! We have to get out now!" Liam's voice, though young, cut through the CEO's fog. Something in his tone, the absolute certainty of a boy who wouldn't accept defeat, jolted Eleanor back to full awareness. Together they struggled, as she unbuckled her seatbelt and Liam guided her towards the passenger side. The heat was becoming unbearable. Smoke filled his lungs, burning Liam's throat. With Liam pulling and the woman pushing, they tumbled from the car just as Grandpa Seamus arrived, a shaky phone pressed to his ear. "This is 911. What's your emergency?" They had barely crawled 20 feet when the Mustang exploded behind them, the force of the blast throwing them to the ground. Liam's ears rang, but he immediately turned to check on the stranger lying gasping beside him. "You're going to be okay," Liam said, with the same confidence he used to assess a complicated art project. "Help is coming," as sirens wailed in the distance. Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out his small wooden robin charm, the one he'd called the most important of all. Without a word, he slipped it into Eleanor Vance's hand, closing her fingers around it. "Keep it, for when you need to remember courage," he whispered, just as the paramedics arrived. After the accident, life in Grandpa Seamus's small apartment seemingly returned to normal. Liam organized his remaining art supplies, less his precious robin charm, while Grandpa Seamus tended to his own aches. But normalcy was a facade that couldn't hide the subtle changes creeping into their routine. "Did you really save someone from a burning car?" asked Chloe Sterling, Liam's classmate, her voice dripping skepticism during recess at their elite private school. "Yeah, I did," Liam replied casually, kicking a loose pebble across the asphalt. "The car exploded right after we got out. It was like in the movies, but louder." "No way a kid could do that," scoffed Marcus Thorne, Chloe's friend. "You're just making stuff up for attention." Liam shrugged, unperturbed by their disbelief. He knew what had happened, and that was enough. Truth didn't need validation from kids who thought heroism only came in adult-sized packages. At home, however, Liam noticed things that troubled his young mind. Grandpa Seamus moved slower than usual, pausing to catch his breath after simple tasks. The bottles of medicine in the kitchen cabinet had multiplied, and Liam often caught his grandpa taking special pills when he thought no one was watching. "Grandpa, are you feeling okay?" Liam asked one evening as they sat on the fire escape, watching fireflies dance in the dusk. "Just a bit tired, lad. These old bones aren't what they used to be." Grandpa Seamus's smile didn't reach his eyes. Later, that night Liam tiptoed into the kitchen for a glass of water and found his grandpa sitting at the worn wooden table, staring at an old, faded photograph. The image showed a young woman with Liam's dark eyes, standing beside a much younger Eleanor Vance, holding a small, bundled blanket. "Who's that woman with the baby, Grandpa?" Liam asked softly. Grandpa Seamus started, quickly sliding the photo. "Under other papers, just an old acquaintance from the neighborhood, lad. Nothing important." But Liam had seen something flicker across his grandpa's face. Recognition, perhaps. Or maybe a deep, unresolved sadness. The woman in the photograph had Liam's same intense gaze and a familiar, almost regal bearing, though Liam couldn't quite place where he'd seen it before. "She looks happy," Liam observed. "She was," Grandpa Seamus whispered, his voice heavy with the weight of decades of secrets. "She was very happy." Then, as Liam returned to bed, he couldn't shake the feeling that the photograph held answers to questions he didn't yet know how to ask, a mystery humming quietly beneath the surface of their lives. At St. Jude's Medical Center, Ms. Eleanor Vance stared at the pristine white ceiling of her private VIP suite. Fragments of memory floated in her mind like pieces of an elusive puzzle. Doctors said she'd suffered a concussion, but her recollections of the accident remained frustratingly vague, except for one crystal-clear image, a young boy with dark, determined eyes pulling her to safety. "Ms. Vance, Dr. Eris Thorne, Chief," of genetic research entered with a clipboard, her expression unusually somber. "We need to discuss something unexpected that arose during your treatment." Eleanor shifted uncomfortably. "Is there an issue with my recovery?" "No, nothing of the sort. As part of our comprehensive genetic screening for all high-profile patients, we analyzed your blood sample. The database flagged an interesting and highly significant match." Dr. Thorne paused, choosing her words carefully. "There is an undeniable genetic correlation with another patient, an 8-year-old boy named Liam O'Connell." The name hit Eleanor Vance like a physical blow. "Liam O'Connell, the boy who saved me. Do you know him?" Eleanor's mind raced. She'd been trying to find the brave boy to thank him properly, but the name O'Connell had meant nothing to her. "What kind of correlation are we talking about?" "The kind that indicates a direct familial relationship, specifically mother and son." The room seemed to tilt. Eleanor clung to the bed rails, her knuckles white. "That's impossible. I don't have children, Doctor." Dr. Thorne consulted her notes. "According to our records, Liam's mother was Sarah O'Connell, formerly Vance. She passed away during childbirth 8 years ago." Sarah Vance. The name exploded in Eleanor's consciousness like a lightning strike. Her beloved younger sister, a vibrant, artistic soul with whom she'd had a profound, albeit sometimes complicated bond. Sarah had disappeared abruptly after a devastating argument with Eleanor, who had insisted Sarah abandon her impractical art dreams for a more sensible career. Eleanor had believed Sarah died, heartbroken and alone, and that her child had not survived. "Ms. Vance, are you all right?" Eleanor's hands trembled as the pieces clicked into place. Sarah had been pregnant. She had carried Eleanor's child, her son, and never told her. The brave boy who'd risked his life to save a stranger was her nephew. No, her son. Her sister had carried her child, a child Eleanor had believed was lost. Her son, who had grown up thinking he had no mother, raised by a humble dockworker. "I need to see the test results," Eleanor whispered, her voice hoarse. "Of course. But Ms. Vance, there's something else you should know." Dr. Thorne paused, her voice softening. "The boy's guardian, Benjamin O'Connell, Grandpa Seamus, as Liam calls him, has been receiving treatment here for severe chronic joint degeneration. His prognosis, it's not terminal, but it severely limits his ability to work and care for Liam long-term without significant costly intervention." Eleanor closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the brutal cosmic irony. Her son, a son she never knew existed, had saved her life. And now fate presented her with the opportunity to save her son's future, and perhaps her own soul. Eleanor Vance's discharge from the hospital felt surreal. Within hours of learning about Liam, her ever-efficient, albeit initially dismissive, executive assistant, Mr. Harrison Reed, had pivoted from scheduling corporate acquisitions to conducting the most delicate investigation of Eleanor's life. "The records are all here," Mr. Reed said, spreading documents across the vast desk in Eleanor's downtown penthouse office. "Sarah O'Connell, formerly Vance, died due to complications during childbirth at St. Jude Hospital. No father listed on the birth certificate. The child has been raised entirely by her maternal uncle, Benjamin O'Connell." Eleanor studied a school photograph of Liam with trembling hands. The resemblance was undeniable. Liam had her determined jawline, Sarah's expressive eyes, and a blend of their features that created something uniquely poignant. "What about the uncle's condition?" Eleanor asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Severe, debilitating joint degeneration. He's been hiding it well, according to neighbors. Still runs that small community art center, still cares for Liam as if nothing's wrong. But he's falling behind on bills, facing foreclosure on the center. Medical costs, they're astronomical." Mr. Reed's voice was, for once, Devoid of its usual clipped formality, Eleanor stood at her office window, gazing at the bustling Chicago streets 42 stories below. A week ago, her biggest concern had been closing the Henderson Hotel chain merger. Now she grappled with the existence of a son she never knew, and the impending loss of the only stable guardian Liam had ever known. Why didn't Sarah tell me? The question that had tormented her since Dr. Thorne's revelation burst forth, raw and unfiltered. We spoke about everything, love, our future. She just vanished. Perhaps she believed you weren't ready, Ms. Vance, Mr. Reed suggested carefully. You were intensely focused on building this company back then. Long hours, constant travel. She probably thought you would consider a child a burden. The words stung because they held truth. At 25, Eleanor had been consumed by ambition, determined to prove her worth, to build an empire. She had loved Sarah deeply, perhaps even profoundly, but had she shown her that anything or a family would come? First, she had not. I need to meet with Grandpa Seamus before approaching Liam, Eleanor decided. If Benjamin O'Connell has been protecting my son for 8 years, he deserves explanations, not surprises. Mr. Reed nodded, a flicker of grudging respect in his eyes. I'll arrange it discreetly. But Ms. Vance, are you prepared for what this means? Taking on the responsibility of an 8-year-old boy. It will change everything in your life. Eleanor touched the small robin charm she had found clutched in her hand at the hospital. Liam's good luck gift that had somehow bound them. Mr. Reed, she said, her voice quiet but firm. That young boy saved my life without knowing who I was. Perhaps it's time I returned the favor. Eleanor Vance's hand trembled as she knocked on Grandpa Seamus's modest apartment door. Through the window, she could see him moving slowly towards the entrance, his strained gait betraying the pain he'd hidden so well. Ms. Vance? Grandpa Seamus's voice held no surprise, only weary resignation. I wondered when you'd come. Did you know who I was? During the accident? Grandpa Seamus stepped aside, ushering her into the small, cluttered living room, filled with the comforting scent of baking bread and old books. Sarah kept your picture. You haven't changed much. His eyes held decades of carefully guarded secrets. She made me promise only to contact you if something happened to me and if Liam had nowhere else to go. Why didn't she tell me herself? The question burst from Eleanor's throat, raw with years of buried regret. She was afraid. Grandpa Seamus sank heavily into his worn armchair, wincing. Sarah saw how consumed you were with building your empire. She became convinced a baby would be an inconvenience, something that would make you resent her eventually. After your last argument, she believed you wouldn't accept a child from her, especially if it was a burden. Eleanor sank onto the small, worn sofa, surrounded by evidence of Liam's life, fantastical art designs taped to the refrigerator, a collection of small, meticulously arranged bird charms on the coffee table, the lingering smell of paints and childhood dreams. She was wrong, Eleanor whispered, the words choked in her throat. I know that now. Grandpa Seamus's smile was sad but genuine. The way you've been looking for Liam since the accident, the concern in your voice when you called, Sarah would have seen that too, given time. How much time does he have left? Eleanor asked, the brutal question hanging in the air. Weeks, maybe a month if I'm lucky, before the pain keeps me from running the center. And then, I don't know, I've been trying to prepare Liam without scaring him, but 8-year-olds shouldn't have to face losing their whole world. The front door burst open, and Liam's voice filled the apartment. Grandpa, I'm home. Mrs. Rossi at the bakery gave me an extra pastry. He stopped dead, eyes wide as he saw Eleanor Vance. It's you, the woman from the car. Liam's face lit up with genuine joy. Are you better? Did my lucky robin help? Eleanor's throat tightened. Yes, honey. It helped a lot. Liam, Ms. Vance brought you something, Grandpa Seamus said softly. Eleanor pulled out the advanced art kit Mr. Reed had grudgingly suggested: miniature canvases, fine brushes, and gleaming chrome art tools. Liam's eyes widened in awe. "This is for me, really?" He immediately began examining each item with the reverence of someone who'd never owned anything so fine. "I heard you like to create art," Eleanor managed to say. "I love it. Do you want to see my collection of charms and my designs?" Without waiting for an answer, Liam grabbed her hand, his small fingers warm and trusting. As he led her to his carefully organized collection, chattering about the significance of each piece, Eleanor felt something fundamental shift in her chest. This wasn't just duty or responsibility. This was love, instantaneous and overwhelming, for the brave boy who'd already changed her life in ways she was only beginning to comprehend. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor Vance became a regular fixture at Grandpa Seamus's apartment. She arrived after work with industrial-grade art supplies, helped Liam with his art projects, and sat quietly with Grandpa Seamus during his increasingly difficult days. The pretense that she was simply a grateful accident victim had naturally evolved into something deeper, a family forming under the shadow of impending loss. Liam had grown accustomed to Eleanor's presence, showing her his latest design blueprints and teaching her basic sketching techniques with the seriousness of imparting ancient wisdom. But he remained unaware of the profound truth that bound them. "He trusts you completely," Grandpa Seamus observed one afternoon, as they watched Liam tinker with a small clay sculpture on the fire escape, his voice grown weaker, each word an effort. "He's extraordinary," Eleanor replied, marveling at how Liam hummed contentedly despite the turmoil surrounding him. "How do we tell him? Soon. He needs to understand before—" Grandpa Seamus's sentence trailed off, but they both knew its tragic conclusion. The moment came 3 days later, when Grandpa Seamus collapsed while trying to lift a box of old supplies. After a terrifying dash to the hospital, doctors confirmed what they'd all feared. His time was measured in days, not weeks. That afternoon, sitting in the apartment living room with Liam nestled between them on the couch, Grandpa Seamus took his grandson's small hands. "Lad, you know I've been feeling tired lately." Liam nodded, suddenly solemn. "You've been taking more medicine." "I'm very sick, child. So sick the doctors can't fix me." Grandpa Seamus's voice remained steady despite the tears in his eyes. "And that means you'll need someone else to look after you." Liam's grip tightened. "But I want to stay with you." "I know, Lamb. But do you remember how we always talked about how strong and brave you are?" Grandpa Seamus looked at Eleanor, who nodded encouragingly. "Ms. Vance isn't just our friend. She's your mother, Liam. Your real mother. And your Aunt Sarah was her sister." Silence stretched endlessly, heavy with untold stories. Liam looked at them both, processing this revelation with the same careful consideration he gave his complex art designs. "My mother?" he whispered, the words fragile. "Yes," Eleanor said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "I didn't know about you before, but now that I do, I want to look after you. If that's okay with you." Liam studied her face intently. "Will you teach me how to paint when I'm older and help me with my sculpture projects and make sure I don't eat too much sugar even when I want to?" "Every single one of those things," Eleanor promised, her voice husky with emotion, a vow spoken from the deepest part of a newly awakened heart. Liam nodded solemnly. "Okay, but can I bring all my art supplies and Grandpa's tools? Everything that's important to you comes with us," Eleanor assured him. As Grandpa Seamus drifted off to sleep that night, Liam whispered to Eleanor, "I'm scared, but I'm ready for our new chapter." Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared, lad. It means you do what needs to be done anyway." 2 weeks after Grandpa Seamus's quiet funeral, a dignified small service where Liam had remained with serene composure, clutching his grandpa's favorite sketching pencil. The elevator to Eleanor. Vance's penthouse apartment ascended towards a new beginning. Liam pressed his face to the glass walls, watching Chicago shrink beneath them, a sprawling metropolis that was now his new home. "Are we really going to live in the clouds?" he asked, his voice small in the vast elevator. "Almost," Eleanor smiled, though her stomach churned with nerves. Social services had approved her guardianship petition, but no paperwork could prepare her for the reality of becoming a mother overnight. The elevator opened to reveal 42 stories of luxury that made Liam's eyes widen. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city skyline, while polished marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Everything was pristine, expensive, and utterly alien to a young boy who'd spent his life above a two-bay bakery. Ms. Vance, and this must be Liam. Mr. Harrison Reed, Eleanor's longtime executive assistant, emerged from the kitchen with a strained smile. "I've been preparing all morning for your arrival." Liam instinctively moved closer to Eleanor, overwhelmed by the grandeur surrounding him. "I prepared a special room just for you," Eleanor said, leading him down a hallway lined with abstract art. She opened a door to reveal a bedroom decorated in elegant blues and silvers, with a window seat overlooking the lake and a specially built shelf for all his art supplies and sketchbooks. "This is all mine?" Liam whispered, stepping carefully onto the plush carpet as if afraid to disturb anything. "All of it." Eleanor knelt beside him. "Your art supplies can go right here on this shelf, and there's space for all your designs and sculpture projects." Liam nodded but remained silent, dropping the small canvas bag containing his few possessions. He arranged his art supplies methodically, recreating the familiar designs that had comforted him in the community center. As he worked, Eleanor noticed his hands trembled slightly. That evening, after Mr. Reed served a dinner Liam barely touched, Eleanor helped him settle into his new room. He wore his grandpa's old art smock over his pajamas and clutched it close as he climbed into the enormous bed. "Good night, Liam," Eleanor said softly from the doorway. "Good night, Mom." The word floated in the air, tentative yet genuine. Eleanor closed the door and sat in the hallway, listening. Soon, soft sobbing filtered through the walls, the sound of a brave boy finally allowing himself to grieve in private. Eleanor sat, on the floor outside his door, her back against the wall. She couldn't take away Liam's pain, but she could be near. Inside, Liam eventually cried himself to sleep, clutching Grandpa Seamus's smock, his robin charm placed on the nightstand like a small sentinel watching over his dreams. The first month of their new life together unfolded like a careful dance between two people learning each other's rhythms. Eleanor had reshaped her entire world, cutting back her work hours, attending parenting for executives seminars that made her feel like a bewildered student, and consulting child psychologists who assured her that adjustment took time. "I got lost again," Liam announced one morning, emerging from what Eleanor had thought was the guest bathroom. "This place is like a maze." Somehow, he'd ended up in her home office, surrounded by financial reports and the stern leather furnishings that suddenly seemed intimidating rather than impressive. Eleanor found him sitting in her executive chair, slowly spinning as he studied. "The city view. Maybe we need a map," Eleanor suggested, remembering Liam's love for creating designs with his art supplies. Liam's face lit up. "Can we make one together?" They spent the afternoon creating a whimsical blueprint, with Liam drawing small sketches to mark each room. A tiny bed for his bedroom, a stack of blueprints for the study, a small bird charm, for the kitchen where Mr. Reed rarely ventured. "What's this room for?" Liam asked, pointing to Eleanor's rarely used formal dining room. "Formal dinners, I suppose. Can we have breakfast in there tomorrow? It looks lonely." Eleanor realized that in 7 years of living in the penthouse, she'd never once considered whether rooms could feel lonely. "Of course we can." Liam insisted on helping Mr. Reed with chores despite both adults' protests. He'd stand on a stool to polish the silverware, his small hands careful with the expensive china, chatting about his day at his new school. "The kids are different here," he confided in Eleanor one afternoon as they did homework at the kitchen island. "They talk about things I don't understand. Yacht lessons and private jet vacations. Are they cruel to you?" "Not cruel, exactly. Just, we don't have the same words." Liam focused on his math problems, then looked up. "But I taught Marcus how to make a mini sculpture out of spare clay during recess. He thought it was cool." Eleanor marveled at his resilience. Where another child might have felt overwhelmed by social differences, Liam simply adapted, finding connections wherever possible. Their bedtime routine had become sacred. Liam would show Eleanor his daily sketches, usually scenes from his memories of the art center or new observations about his life in the penthouse. She had learned to look closely, understanding that his drawings were how he processed the enormous changes in his world. "This is us," he said one night, holding up a drawing of two stick figures holding hands in front of a tall building. "We look happy." Eleanor studied the drawing, noting Liam had given both figures the same determined jawline. "We look happy. Are we happy?" Liam considered it seriously. "I miss Grandpa Seamus every day, but I'm glad you're my mom." "Is that okay?" "That's more than okay," Eleanor whispered, carefully filing the drawing into the growing collection she kept in her desk drawer. "That's perfect." Liam's artwork had evolved from simple pencil sketches to complex watercolor scenes that took Eleanor's breath away. The art tutor she'd hired, Ms. Anya Sharma, walked out of her first session, shaking her head in awe. "Ms. Vance, I've taught children for 20 years, but Liam's natural talent is extraordinary. He doesn't just draw what he sees, he captures emotion." Eleanor studied Liam's latest creation, a painting of his old neighborhood community center with Grandpa Seamus tending the art room. But somehow the whole scene glowed with a warmth and love that transcended mere depiction. "He's processing his grief through art," Ms. Sharma explained softly. "Look at this series." The paintings told Liam's story: the community center, the accident, the hospital, their first meeting, and finally, scenes from the penthouse with joy and uncertainty swirling in the brushstrokes. Eleanor had them professionally framed and displayed them throughout the penthouse, replacing her sterile, abstract pieces with Liam's vibrant, emotional landscapes. The transformation was remarkable. The cold, impersonal space suddenly felt like a home. But the real test came during Liam's first major meltdown. He woke up screaming at 2 a.m., calling for Grandpa Seamus through sobs that seemed to rip from his very soul. Eleanor found him curled up in his closet, hyperventilating and inconsolable. "Grandpa Seamus, I want Grandpa Seamus. Where is he? Where did he go?" Eleanor's parenting seminars hadn't prepared her for this raw display of grief. Her instinct was to fix it, to make promises that would stop his tears. Instead, she remembered Ms. Sharma's advice about allowing Liam to process emotions naturally. "I know, honey. I know you miss him." She sat on the closet floor beside him, making no attempt to pull him out or make him stop crying. "Grandpa, Seamus loved you very much. I dreamed he was painting, but then he just faded away and I couldn't find him anywhere." Eleanor reached for Liam's sketchbook and pencils, gently placing them beside him. "Can you show me what the dream looked like?" Through his tears, Liam began to draw. The image that emerged was haunting. A community center fading into mist as a small figure reached desperately for it. But as he worked, his breathing steadied, the violent sobs turning into soft whimpers. "He's not really gone, is he?" Liam whispered when he finished the drawing. "I mean, I can't see him, but he's still here." He placed his hand over his heart. "He'll always be right here," Eleanor confirmed, her own voice thick with emotion. "And in your mind, and in the skills he taught you, and in how brave and kind you are." Liam leaned into her, exhausted, but calmer. Will you stay until I fall asleep? I'll stay as long as you need me. As Liam drifted off, still clutching his pencil, Eleanor realized something profound had shifted between them. She wasn't just his guardian anymore. She was truly his mother, the person her son turned to when his world felt uncertain. The realization filled her with fierce protectiveness and humble gratitude. The legal proceedings for Liam's permanent adoption moved forward with bureaucratic precision. But the emotional adoption had already taken place in moments too small for courts to measure. Eleanor found herself treasuring Liam's sleepy, "Good morning, Mom," and the way he automatically reached for her hand when crossing busy streets. "Bring your son to work," Mr. Reed suggested one Tuesday morning, noting Eleanor's reluctance, to leave for an important client meeting. "He has school," Eleanor protested, though the idea appealed to her more than she'd admit. "It's a teacher planning day," Liam had told Mr. Reed yesterday. Mr. Reed quirked an eyebrow. "You're not the only one paying attention to his schedule." An hour later, Liam sat in Eleanor's executive boardroom, quietly working on his homework while Eleanor conducted her meeting. He had promised to be invisible, but his presence completely transformed the atmosphere. Her usually cutthroat business, associates found themselves smiling at his polite "excuse me" when he needed to adjust a building block in his complex Lego castle. "Is that your son?" asked Marcus Thorne, one of Eleanor's toughest competitors, after the meeting concluded. "He's extraordinary. Reminds me of my own boy." Eleanor felt a surge of pride watching Liam charm her colleagues with his genuine curiosity about their work. He asked thoughtful questions about urban planning and listened with the same earnest attention he gave his art supply arrangements. Later, while organizing her desk drawer, Eleanor discovered something that made her heart stop. The small wooden robin charm Liam had given her on the day of the accident, now slightly tarnished and worn from being carried in her pocket for months. "Liam?" she called softly. Liam looked up from his drawing at the small conference table. "I have something that belongs to you." His eyes widened at the sight of the familiar wooden bird. "My lucky robin. I thought I'd never see it again. You gave it to me for luck, remember? And it worked. It brought me to you." Eleanor had the charm professionally cleaned and mounted on a display stand, presenting it to Liam that evening at dinner. His reaction was everything she'd hoped for and more. He clutched it to his chest, tears in his eyes. "Now we're both lucky," he whispered. Their relationship deepened through shared experiences that might have seemed ordinary to others but felt magical to both of them. They developed inside jokes about Mr. Reed's tendency to over-organize everything, created elaborate backstories for the people they observed from their high windows, and established rituals that belonged uniquely to them. But it was Liam's difficult day at school that truly cemented their bond. He came home unusually quiet, his usual chatter replaced by pensive silence. At dinner, he picked at the carefully prepared meal, lost in thought. "Do you want to talk about it?" Eleanor asked softly. The kids at school were talking about their spring break trips, skiing in Aspen, beaches in Hawaii, castles in Europe. Liam's voice was small. "When they asked about mine, I said we didn't go anywhere because my grandpa Seamus had just passed away. They all got really awkward and quiet, like I'd said something wrong." Eleanor felt a familiar surge of protectiveness, but forced herself to listen instead of immediately trying to fix her son's pain. Then Chloe, she's usually not very kind, said, "Maybe next year your new family will take you somewhere good. Like I was some kind of charity case who got lucky." Liam's eyes filled with tears. "They don't understand that you're not new. You're my real Mom, and we're a real family, even if it's different." Eleanor moved around the table to kneel by her son's chair. "Liam, I want to tell you about when I was your age." His tears paused, curiosity overriding grief. I had a difficult family situation too for a while. My parents were always focused on their work, and I felt different from the other kids who had normal families. I was angry and ashamed, thinking I wasn't good enough. But you're successful now, Liam interrupted. You have this beautiful home and everyone respects you. True legacy isn't built on what you own, but on who you are, and on the lives you touch, especially when no one is looking, Eleanor said softly. You saved a stranger's life when you were 8. You handled the loss of your grandpa with more grace than most adults could manage. You adapted to an entirely new life without losing your kindness or your courage. Those kids can't even imagine being that strong. Liam considered this, absently rubbing the stand of his lucky robin. Will you help me write a letter to my teacher? I want to do a presentation about Grandpa Seamus for Show and Tell Day, about how he taught me to be brave and kind, and how that's more important than fancy vacations. I'd be honored to help you with that. As they worked on the presentation together that afternoon, Eleanor realized Liam was teaching her as much as she was teaching her son. Through his eyes, she was rediscovering what truly mattered. Not the size of her bank account or the view from her office, but the courage to love completely and the wisdom to find strength in vulnerability. The final DNA test results arrived the following week, officially confirming what their hearts already knew. Eleanor had the document framed, not as proof of their relationship, but as a symbol of the legal system finally catching up to an emotional truth that had been evident from the moment they met. The idea for the Vance Global Foundation sprang to Eleanor during one of Liam's pre-bedtime musings. When he wondered aloud why some children didn't have enough food, while others complained about too many toys, his simple question, couldn't the kids who have too much just share with the kids who don't have enough, planted a seed that would grow into something transformative. What if we actually could do that? Eleanor asked him the next morning at breakfast. Liam looked up from his cereal, intrigued. Do what? Share. Create a way to help children who don't have what they need. Eleanor pulled out a legal pad, sketching ideas as she spoke. We could call it the Vance Global Foundation for Youth Innovation. For Grandpa Seamus and us? Liam's eyes lit up with understanding. For the 3 most important people in my life? Eleanor confirmed, adding Sarah's name prominently to her notes. Within weeks, the foundation took shape, with Liam as its most passionate advocate. He insisted on including art and design kits in every aid package, explaining to the Foundation's board of directors with the seriousness of a seasoned philanthropist that creativity and problem-solving were just as important as food and clothing. Building. Things helps you feel better when you're sad, he told the intimidating group of lawyers and business people, and it helps you dream of better things when everything seems bad. The board, initially skeptical of including an 8-year-old in their planning sessions, found themselves charmed by Liam's practical wisdom and his unwavering moral compass. Their first major project was the renovation of the Phoenix Canvas Community Arts Center on the city's west side. Eleanor had expected to cut a check and attend a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Instead, Liam insisted they visit first to understand what the children truly needed. Hi, Liam said simply to the group of cautious children gathered in the center's common room. While Eleanor spoke with the administrators, he sat cross-legged on the floor and began assembling a small clay sculpture from a kit. Within minutes, he was surrounded by curious faces. What are those? Asked a child Liam's age, clothes too small, eyes too old. Innovation kits, Liam explained. Each one tells a story about what you can build and where you might go. Can we make some? That's why I brought extras. Liam pulled out a bag of kits he'd been collecting specifically for this purpose. Everyone can pick their favorites and create their own invention. Eleanor watched from across the room as Liam worked his magic, teaching the children not just a craft, but a way to find purpose and possibility in discarded things. He listened to their stories without judgment, helped resolve disputes over particularly coveted pieces, and somehow made every child feel special and heard. "He's extraordinary," said Dr. Maria Rodriguez, the center's director. "Most adult volunteers come here feeling sorry for our kids. Your son sees them as equals. He knows what it's like for his world to shift overnight," Eleanor responded, her throat tight with pride. When the renovation began 3 months later, Liam participated in every decision. He insisted on vibrant, inspiring murals instead of institutional beige, dedicated sculpture labs instead of sterile study areas, and a fully stocked innovation room with supplies that would never run out. "Every child should have a place where they can make something amazing," he declared during a planning meeting, sketching his vision with the same careful attention he gave his complex blueprints. The transformation was remarkable. The formerly dreary center became a warm, inviting space where children could heal and hope. Liam donated half of his personal art supply collection to stock the innovation room, carefully selecting the pieces that held special meaning. "This blue one was the first one I found after Mom saved me from the accident," he explained to Mr. Reed, who was documenting the donation for the foundation's records. "And this green one was Grandpa Seamus's favorite, because it reminded him of spring." "Are you sure you want to give them away?" Mr. Reed asked gently. "They're not leaving," Liam said with conviction. "They're going to help other kids make their own inventions. That's what Grandpa Seamus would want." The official opening of the renovated center garnered media attention, which Eleanor carefully managed to protect Liam's privacy while highlighting his vision. But it was the private moments that mattered most. Watching Liam teach a timid 6-year-old how to sculpt a simple figure, seeing him comfort a teenager who'd aged out of foster care, observing his natural ability to connect with children from all backgrounds. "Why do you think helping other kids is so important?" Eleanor asked him one evening as they reviewed foundation applications. Liam considered the question with his characteristic thoughtfulness. "When Grandpa Seamus was sick, I felt really lonely, even though he was still there. And when he died, I felt like the whole world had forgotten about me." He looked up from the grant application he'd been reviewing, a request from a group home in Milwaukee. "These kids feel lonely, too. Maybe if we help them, they'll remember someone cares about them, even when everything feels scary." Eleanor realized Liam had articulated something she'd spent years in business school trying to grasp: that true success wasn't measured in profit margins, but in the number of lives you touched and improved. The foundation expanded rapidly, funding innovation programs in 12 centers across the Midwest within its first year. Liam insisted on visiting each one, creating his art designs with hundreds of children, and leaving behind not just supplies, but hope. "He's changing how we think about child welfare," noted Dr. Samuel Mitchell, a social work professor who began studying the foundation's impact. "Traditional approaches focus on meeting basic needs: food, shelter, safety. Liam's initiatives address something deeper: the need for dignity, creativity, and connection." Eleanor, too, found herself changing. Her perspective on wealth and responsibility was fundamentally altered by her son's example. Deals that once seemed crucial now paled in comparison to the joy on a child's face when they completed their first invention. Board meetings felt trivial next to foundation planning sessions, where Liam's opinion held as much weight as any MBA. "You know what the best part is?" Liam told her one evening as they organized photos from their latest center visit. "When kids build things, they stop being sad for a while. And sometimes, if they make enough inventions, they remember how to be happy again." Eleanor studied a photo of Liam sitting with a group of children, all of them intensely focused on their creations. In that moment, she understood that her son hadn't just saved her life in a car accident. He'd saved her soul, teaching her that true wealth came not from what you accumulated, but from what you gave. The threat came from an unexpected source: Eleanor Vance's past, intruding on her carefully constructed present with vicious intent. Julian Vance, Eleanor's ambitious and conniving cousin, had risen to co-CEO of Vance Global, but he resented Eleanor's singular control and her growing focus on the foundation. He saw Liam as a direct threat to his own ambitions. Mr. Harrison Reed delivered the unsettling news during what should have been a routine morning briefing. Julian has been making inquiries. He's digging into the details of your accident, Ms. Vance, and Liam's adoption. Eleanor's blood ran cold. What kind of inquiries? He suspects foul play in the accident, the car's inexplicable malfunction, and he's suggesting that Liam's adoption was irregular. He's implying you leveraged your influence. Mr. Reed's voice was grim. He sees Liam as a threat to his own claim on the company. The understanding struck Eleanor like a physical blow. Julian wasn't just trying to usurp her position. He was trying to invalidate the very foundation of her new life. The irony was brutal. The very act that brought Liam to her, Julian was trying to weaponize. There's more, Mr. Reed continued gravely. Julian has been planting rumors within the company, questioning Liam's place, implying he's merely a charity project you've adopted for PR purposes. He's targeting employees who show Liam kindness. Eleanor's phone rang that afternoon while she was helping Liam with his art homework. The voice on the other end was coldly familiar. Cousin Eleanor, heard you've got a new little project. Quite the heartwarming story for the shareholders, isn't it? Eleanor moved quickly to the kitchen, away from Liam's innocent presence. Julian, what do you want? What's rightfully mine? Full control of Vance Global. You've become soft, distracted by charity work and your unexpected family. I'm the one who can steer this company where it needs to go. Unless you want the board to receive a very detailed report about your sudden, questionable adoption and the suspicious circumstances of your recent accident, you'll step down gracefully. The line went dead, leaving Eleanor trembling with rage and a chilling fear for Liam. Within hours, Mr. Reed had activated Vance Global's internal security and legal teams, but the damage was already done. Julian had already begun leaking fabricated stories to the tabloids, painting Eleanor as a ruthless CEO who adopted a child for a PR stunt, and subtly hinting at her car accident being a convenient way to dispose of her estranged sister. Though the claims were baseless, they triggered mandatory internal investigations that plunged their lives into chaos. Liam sensed the change immediately. Why are there more men in suits asking Mr. Reed questions? He asked that afternoon, his Robin, charm clutched tightly in his small hand. Eleanor knelt beside him, choosing honesty over false reassurance. Someone is trying to cause trouble for our family, honey. But we're going to be okay because we have the truth on our side. Is it because of me? Because I'm different? From other kids? No, honey, it's because of me. Something that happened long before I knew you existed. But nothing will separate us. I promise you. The nightmares returned that night, and Eleanor found herself once again sitting outside Liam's door, listening to his frightened whimpers and feeling powerless to protect him from the adult cruelties he shouldn't have to understand. The breakthrough came when Mr. Reed's investigation uncovered Julian's full scheme, including recorded conversations where he admitted to orchestrating the leaks and discussing ways to discredit Eleanor. More damningly, a disgruntled former Vance Global mechanic who had been fired by Julian came forward with proof that Julian had tampered with Eleanor's car. The mechanic's testimony and the gathered evidence proved that Julian had meticulously planned the accident, hoping to take over the company. The authorities arrested Julian, ending the immediate threat, but leaving emotional scars that would take time to heal. The bad man is gone for good? Liam asked, after Eleanor explained that Julian could no longer harm them. For good? For good, Eleanor confirmed, hugging him tightly and marveling at his resilience. Even in the face of adult malevolence, Liam remained fundamentally hopeful, trusting that goodness would ultimately prevail. Good, he said simply, because we have too much important work to do to waste time being scared. 6 months after Julian's arrest and the finalization of Liam's adoption, their story began to attract attention beyond Chicago's philanthropic circles. What started as a local human interest piece, local CEO's Son Inspires citywide charity initiative, escalated to national coverage when a prominent child advocacy group shared the work of Liam's foundation on social media. "Mom, why do all these people want to talk to us?" Liam asked, looking at the stack of interview requests Mr. Reed had carefully filtered and declined. "Because your story gives people hope," Eleanor explained, though she fiercely guarded Liam's privacy. "When people hear about a young boy who saved a stranger and then used his new life to help other children, it reminds them that good things can happen." Eleanor had agreed to one carefully controlled interview with a respected family magazine, with strict conditions on Liam's involvement. He would only answer questions he was comfortable with. No photographers would enter their home, and his foundation's work would be the primary focus rather than the dramatic circumstances that brought them together. The journalist, Sarah Davies, arrived expecting a typical heartwarming story, but left profoundly moved by Liam's genuine compassion and articulate wisdom. "Most 8-year-olds I interview give one-word answers," Sarah told Eleanor privately. "Liam speaks like someone who's lived 3 lives. He's extraordinary." The article, titled "The Young Innovator," captured Liam's essence without exploiting his story. It showcased his designs, his foundation philosophy, and his hands-on approach to helping others. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of letters from children wanting to start their own building projects, donations pouring into the foundation, and requests from centers nationwide asking for help implementing Liam's programs. "Look at this one," Liam said carefully, reading a letter from a 10-year-old in California who had started collecting old electronics to create robots for children in his neighborhood. "It says my story made him brave enough to help others." Eleanor watched her son process this responsibility with the same thoughtful consideration he gave everything else. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the attention, he seemed energized by the prospect of expanding their impact. The foundation's annual fundraising gala had originally been planned as a modest Chicago event, but with the national interest in Liam's work, it evolved into something far grander. Eleanor insisted on keeping the focus on the children they served rather than their personal story, but she knew Liam deserved recognition for his vision and leadership. "I've never been to a fancy party before," Liam admitted on the night of the gala, standing in front of his bedroom mirror in a sleek, tailored suit that matched his confident personality. "What if I say something wrong?" "Honey, you've spoken to groups of adults at foundation meetings, comforted scared children in shelters, and charmed some of Chicago's toughest business people. You'll be perfect." But those were just conversations. This is different. Eleanor knelt beside him, straightening the small silver bird charm, Grandpa Seamus's old lucky charm, that Liam always wore on important occasions. "Remember what Grandpa Seamus used to tell you about nerves?" he said. "Butterflies. In your stomach just means something matters to you," Liam recited, his voice growing steadier. "And what did he say to do with those butterflies? Use them to fly higher than you thought possible." The Grand Metropolitan Ballroom had been transformed into a showcase of children's creations from all 12 centers supported by the foundation. Liam had insisted that each piece be prominently displayed, creating a gallery that told stories of hope, resilience, and creativity flourishing despite difficult circumstances. As guests arrived, a mix of Chicago's elite, social workers, center administrators, and some of the older children from their programs, Liam moved through the crowd with natural grace. He remembered names, asked thoughtful questions, and somehow made everyone feel like the most important person in the room. "Liam, can you tell us about this robot?" asked Ms. Margaret Thorne, one of Chicago's most prominent philanthropists, pausing at a vibrant piece created by a 6-year-old from the Phoenix canvas. "That's Maria's," Liam explained. "She told me that's what happiness looks Like, all the circuits connected but still beautiful. She made it after she found out her foster family wants to adopt her. Liam's explanation was simple yet profound, capturing both the child's joy and the deeper meaning of the invention as an expression. The formal program began with Eleanor addressing the crowd, but it was Liam's brief speech that left the audience spellbound. When I was little, well, a little less little than I am now, he began, prompting soft laughter. My grandpa Seamus taught me that everyone has something amazing inside them, but sometimes it gets hidden under sad or scary things. He paused, scanning the audience with the same earnest attention he gave his engineering diagrams. The kids we help aren't different from anyone else. They just need someone to help them remember how to find their amazing things again. Building stuff helps with that. So does knowing someone cares about you. His voice grew stronger as he continued. My mom and I are lucky because we found each other when we both needed families, but a lot of kids are still looking for their families or their safe places or just someone who believes in them. That's why our foundation matters. The applause was thunderous, but Liam wasn't finished. If you want to help, you don't have to give money, though that's good too, he added with a smile that made the adults chuckle. You can collect old electronics for new inventions, or visit kids who are lonely. Or just remember that every person has something beautiful inside them, even when it's hard to see. As he concluded, Liam pulled out his small wooden robin charm, holding it up for all to see. This little thing didn't just save my mom's life and bring us together. It showed us that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness forge the mightiest bonds. A sudden commotion erupted at the back of the room. Julian Vance, looking disheveled and wild-eyed, pushed past security, yelling, She's lying! He's a charity stunt! She bought him for PR! She staged the accident! His voice echoed, turning heads. Eleanor Vance, composed despite the shock, stepped forward. Mr. Reed, please escort my cousin Julian Vance from the premises. Effective immediately, he is terminated from Vance Global and all its subsidiaries. Her voice was calm but held an icy authority. And as for his baseless accusations, they are precisely why I have chosen this moment to reveal the full truth. She walked to Liam, taking his hand. Julian Vance, consumed by his own ambition, orchestrated the very accident he now discredits. He tampered with my car, hoping to remove me and take control of Vance Global, but his malice inadvertently brought me to my son. Eleanor looked out at the stunned crowd, her voice gaining strength. Liam is not a charity project. He is my son, my only living relative, and the true heir to everything I have built. She turned to Liam, her eyes brimming with love. Liam, you saved my life, and in doing so, you gave me a life worth living. Eleanor then looked at Mr. Harrison Reed. Mr. Reed, I expect to see the termination of every employee who participated in or propagated Julian's malicious rumors regarding Liam by morning. True legacy isn't built on what you own, but on who you are, and on the lives you touch, especially when no one is looking. Liam has taught me that. The applause was deafening, but Liam hadn't finished. If you want to help, you don't have to give money, though that's good too, he added with a smile that made the adults chuckle. You can collect old electronics for new inventions or visit kids who are lonely, or just remember that every person has something beautiful inside them, even when it's hard to see. The ovation lasted several minutes, but Eleanor noticed many guests were wiping away tears. Later, as they toured the room together, she overheard conversations that proved Liam's impact extended far beyond fundraising. That boy just made me reconsider our entire company's charitable giving strategy, confided Thomas Sterling, CEO of a large corporation. I'm calling 3 shelters tomorrow to volunteer, another guest said. If an 8-year-old can make this kind of difference, surely I can contribute something. The night raised over $5 million for the foundation, but more importantly, it established Liam as a true child welfare advocate rather than simply a sympathetic figure. The media coverage focused on his articulate vision and practical solutions rather than the dramatic story of their reunion. You were magnificent tonight, Eleanor told Liam as they drove home, still in their formal attire, but both exhausted by the emotional intensity of the evening. "Did we help the kids?" he asked, snuggling into her shoulder in the back seat of her car. "We helped them tremendously. And you inspired so many adults to think differently about what children can accomplish when given the chance." "Good, because Grandpa Seamus always said if you have the power to make things better, you have the responsibility to try." Eleanor smiled, recognizing Grandpa Seamus's wisdom in Liam's words. As they pulled into their building's garage, she marveled at how this young boy had not only transformed her understanding of family and purpose, but was now influencing an entire community to reconsider its responsibilities towards society's most vulnerable children. The Foundation's phones rang constantly over the next few weeks with offers of support, partnership requests, and most movingly, calls from children who wanted to start their own aid projects. Liam insisted on personally answering as many as possible, dictating letters Mr. Reed would type, and helping coordinate electronics collection drives nationwide. "Are you happy with how it all turned out?" Eleanor asked him one evening as they framed the official adoption certificate next to one of his earliest drawings of their first meeting. Liam studied both images thoughtfully. "I'm sad Grandpa Seamus isn't here to see it, but I think he'd be proud. We're looking after each other, and we're helping other kids feel less lonely. That's what he'd want." As they hung the frames side by side in their living room, Eleanor realized Liam had given her something more valuable than she'd ever imagined possible. Not just a son, but a purpose that stretched far beyond personal success to encompass genuine service to others. 1 year to the day of the accident that changed everything, Liam stood in front of his bedroom mirror, preparing for his first day at Thorne Academy, one of Chicago's most prestigious private schools. The 8-year-old boy, adjusting his new uniform, bore little resemblance to the 7-year-old who'd knelt beside a roadside stand. Yet his essential spirit remained unchanged. "Nervous?" Eleanor asked, appearing in his doorway with 2 mugs of hot cocoa, a tradition they'd established for important mornings. "A little," Liam admitted, accepting the warm mug gratefully. "What if the kids think I'm weird because of all the newspaper stories?" "Then they don't deserve to be your friends." Eleanor sat on his bed, watching Liam make the final adjustments to his appearance. "But I have a feeling you'll find your people. You always do." Liam walked to his dresser, where his remaining art supply collection was arranged in a new pattern, a perfect abstract sculpture with Grandpa Seamus's photograph carefully placed in the center. The design had taken him weeks to perfect, each piece placed with the same meticulous care he'd shown at 7. But now, with the added wisdom of all he'd experienced, "I used to think art supplies were magic," he said, touching one gently. "But I realized the magic was never in the pieces themselves." Where was it then? In believing that something good was coming, even when everything looked broken. Liam grabbed his backpack, heavy with new school supplies and neatly organized by his color-coded system. "Grandpa Seamus taught me that hope is the most important thing you can carry with you." They walked to school in comfortable silence, both lost in reflection on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The accident that could have been a tragedy had become the first chapter of a love story. Not just between mother and son, but between their small family and the hundreds of children whose lives they'd touched through the foundation. The imposing brick facade of Thorne Academy might have intimidated another child, but Liam surveyed it with the same practical assessment. He applied to everything else. Students in identical uniforms clustered in small groups, their conversations creating a hum of nervous energy that marked the beginning of any school year. "Remember," Eleanor said as they approached the entrance, "you don't have to prove anything to anyone. Just be yourself." "I know." Liam paused at the school's threshold, his hand unconsciously reaching for the wooden robin charm that never left his side. "Mom?" "Yes, honey." "Will you be here when school gets out? I know it's silly, but..." The question revealed the one vulnerability Liam rarely showed, the ingrained fear that the people he loved might disappear without warning, just as Grandpa Seamus had. Eleanor knelt, to his height, taking her son's small hands in hers. "Liam O'Connell Vance, I will be here every day when school gets out, for as long as you need me. I promise you on everything I care about, on Grandpa Seamus's memory, on our foundation, on the love that brought us together, even when you're older. Especially when you're older, that's what moms do. We stay." Liam's smile transformed his face, banishing the last traces of uncertainty. "Okay, then I'm ready." As he walked into the school, his confident stride drawing curious glances from other students, Eleanor reflected on the remarkable journey that had led them there. 12 months prior, she had been a successful but emotionally isolated CEO whose life revolved around profit margins and quarterly reports. Today, she was a mother whose greatest achievement was measured not in dollars, but in the courage of the young boy disappearing into his new school. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Reed. "Foundation board meeting postponed to 2 p.m. 3 new shelter requests need review." Eleanor smiled, texting back, "Perfect. Liam will want to evaluate the innovation program proposals when he gets home." The Vance Global Foundation for Youth Innovation had evolved far beyond its original vision. With Liam's input, they had expanded to support robotics programs in 23 states, trained over 200 volunteers in Liam's invention kit technique, and helped establish creative spaces and facilities that served over 5,000 children. But the numbers, impressive as they were, didn't capture the real impact. The timid children who had found their voice through building, the teenagers who had discovered hope through creativity, the families reunited through programs that addressed emotional healing alongside basic needs. Liam had become something unprecedented in the philanthropic world. A child advocate whose ideas were taken seriously by adults, whose vision shaped policy decisions, and whose personal story inspired systemic change. University researchers studied his programs. Child welfare experts sought his input, and most remarkably, children across the country had begun organizing their own aid initiatives inspired by his example. That afternoon, Liam burst through their apartment door with the enthusiastic energy of someone who'd conquered new territory. "Tell me everything," Eleanor demanded, pulling him into a hug that lifted him off his feet. "Miss Patterson, she's my teacher," Liam said, his words tumbling out in an excited rush as he shed his school shoes and began his afternoon routine of checking his remaining art supply collection. "She asked if I was the Liam from the newspapers, and I said yes, but I hoped we could talk about normal 8-year-old kid stuff, too. And then Chloe Sterling said her mom read the article about our foundation and asked if I could teach her how to make robot kits for her little sister who's scared to start kindergarten. And Marcus Thorne, he sits next to me in math, said his grandma also collects old watches, but she just keeps them in a jar. I told him about new inventions, and he wants to learn. Oh, and the librarian, Mr. Rodriguez, asked if I'd like to start an engineering club where kids can work on projects. To donate to shelters." Eleanor listened with the satisfaction of someone whose world had found its proper order. Liam's ability to find connection and purpose wherever he went no longer surprised her, but it continued to fill her with awe. As they worked together on the foundation applications that afternoon, Liam carefully reviewing the children's program requests while Eleanor handled the financial details, she marveled at how completely intertwined their lives had become. They now functioned as true partners, each bringing unique strengths to their shared mission of helping children find creativity and hope in difficult circumstances. "This one's from a school in Denver," Liam announced, holding up an application, decorated with childlike drawings of rockets. "They want to start an invention program for kids whose parents are deployed overseas. Military families move around a lot, so kids could take their inventions with them to remember that they belong somewhere. What do you think?" Liam studied the application with the same earnest consideration he once reserved for organizing, his collection by type. I think children who have to say goodbye to their parents for a long time need extra magic to carry with them. We should definitely help them. As bedtime approached, Liam completed his nightly ritual of arranging his art supplies and his abstract sculpture pattern around Grandpa Seamus's photograph. The routine had evolved over the months, becoming less about seeking comfort and more about honoring memory while embracing the future. Grandpa Seamus would be amazed by everything we've accomplished, he said softly, touching the frame, holding his grandpa's smiling image. He'd be proud but not amazed, Eleanor corrected softly. He always knew you were capable of changing the world. He just prepared you for it. Liam nodded, then surprised her by pulling a small wrapped package from his school backpack. I made this for you in art class today. It's for our anniversary. Inside was a small painting showing two figures standing beside a burning car. But instead of depicting the trauma of the accident, Liam had transformed it into something beautiful. A golden light surrounded the figures, and the flames had become shooting stars, carrying them towards a bright future filled with other small figures, the children they'd helped together. It's when everything started, he explained, his voice filled with an old wisdom. When we saved each other. Eleanor's eyes welled with tears as she studied the painting, understanding that Liam had captured something profound about their relationship. They hadn't just found each other. They had rescued each other from lives that, while comfortable, had been incomplete. Thank you, she whispered, knowing the painting would join her growing collection of artwork that chronicled their journey together. As Liam settled into bed, clutching the lucky robin charm that had brought them together, Eleanor sat in her familiar spot outside his door. Not because he needed comfort, but because these quiet moments of watching over him had become precious to her. Through her partially open door, she could see Liam arranging tomorrow's school clothes with the same methodical care he brought to everything else. At 8 years old, he possessed a remarkable combination of childlike wonder and mature wisdom, able to find joy and simple pleasures while carrying the weight of helping other children find their own paths to happiness. The future stretched ahead of them, filled with school programs to attend, foundation work to expand, and the ordinary and extraordinary moments of a mother and son building a life together. Liam would grow up, pursue his own dreams, and eventually create a family of his own. But the bond forged in those crucial months after the accident would remain unbreakable. When Eleanor finally headed to her own room, she paused at the living room wall where their framed adoption certificate hung beside Liam's first drawing of their meeting. The legal document and the childish artwork represented the same truth, that families aren't always born. Sometimes they're chosen, rescued, and built one day at a time through love, patience, and the courage to believe that even the most unexpected beginnings can lead to beautiful endings. The brave young boy who'd saved a stranger's life had indeed led them both to something magical, just as his little robin charm had always promised. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe. For more unforgettable, emotional, and viral true stories, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from?